Costas Frangeskides, can the Cyprus issue be solved through the courts? A lawyer's perspective on the role of the law in the search for a just settlement. Costa.
Thank you, Theo. As you can see, the title is Can the Cyprus issue be resolved through the courts? I look at that particular question, which is, you may think, an unusual question or a strange question, but a question that keeps coming up. Yes, I am a lawyer, I am involved with these cases, and we are also human, so I will also start with some more emotional matters.
Nothing wrong with emotion,
I will also give I would like to give full disclosure. I always start, I tend to start in this vein because I think it's important to see where I'm coming from. I am the son of a Cypriot father from Famagusta, from a village called Limnia. I was only a child, but I recall vividly reports of Turkey's invasion as if it was yesterday. The pain, the despair, the anger at what's happening, at the suffering the Cypriot people were going through, at the sight of Turkish warplanes and tanks attacking a small defenceless island and its people. I also recall the complete ineptitude of the West, and that's something that stayed with me to this day. So therefore, the first point I want to make before we talk about the lawyers and the law is this is personal to me, this issue. I give full disclosure. It's personal because it's wrong. It's wrong what Turkey did in 1974 and continues to do to this day. It is wrong morally, it is wrong ethically, it is wrong legally. However, that's my personal opinion, you may say. Turkey and its Prime Minister, its representatives, and the representatives of the occupied areas have their own personal opinions. Now, we all know, as Kyriakos said, there are many commentators who look at this problem, and politicians, as a difference, a convenient way of looking at it, we all know, as a difference of opinion between two sides, two communities. There are two stories, there are two sides to this. We've all heard it for years. Now we've heard the latest mantra from the UK, which raises my eye every time I hear it. We want to find a solution by the Cypriots for the Cypriots. Pretty bleeding obvious, isn't it? Including recently, if I can find my BlackBerry, which does come into use sometimes. Another example of this. I just want to give background here as to why I, as a lawyer, do what I do, why I want to deal with this unfortunate mantra, if I can use that again, that we've got too many lawyers going around not helping the Cyprus issue, we're not going to get a solution through the courts. That's really where I'm coming from tonight, and I want to explain why that's not correct. And that's really what I'm going to be talking about. Now, going back to this again, this mantra, a solution by the Cypriots for the Cypriots. David Burrows recently, and I've got it here, my MP for Enfield, asked a question of the Minister for Europe, David Lidington, Minister of State for Europe and NATO, Foreign and Commonwealth Office. I just want to give you an example of what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with political expediency. Turkey invaded and occupied. 200,000 people were removed from their homes. We're asking the Minister for Europe, what's happening now? We know what's happening now. We know the positions that the Turks have taken. We know what's happened with a new leader in the Turkish Cypriot community now and how worse he is for us and for a solution for all Cypriots. So here is our Minister for Europe. This is a UN-led process by Cypriots, for Cypriots, aimed at reaching an agreed settlement to the Cyprus problem for the benefit of all those on the island. The reunification of Cyprus would be the best thing for both communities, and the government will do all they can to support the leaders as they work towards this. We welcome the resumption of negotiations in Cyprus under the agreed UN parameters. Blah, blah, blah. The two leaders are currently discussing. What does that say? Nothing. He's sitting on the fence. We all know that 36 years are about to pass again since that terrible invasion. We've all got our views on why we are still in this situation, why Turkey is able to reinforce its ever more illegal position, bringing in illegal colonists, destroying more Greek churches, and trying to wipe out any evidence that the Greeks were ever present in the occupied area. They were there for thousands and thousands of years, as we know. Where am I going with this? We blame the politicians, whether they're Greek, Cypriot, British, American. We blame politicians on the left, we blame politicians on the right. We've all been in Gaffania, we've all been in family gatherings when it's the left wing or it's the right wing. The fact remains that politicians generally have failed us, but it's not completely their fault. 36 years down the line, Cyprus is still occupied. It is divided and needs to be reunited. All basic points. How do we get there? Politically, it hasn't worked. Militarily, it's not a viable solution. So really what I want to talk about was this rather annoying mantra that we hear nowadays, particularly after Apostolides and the Mobilos more recently, that the law is getting in the way of a solution, and we must hold off. We're not going to solve the Cyprus issue through the courts. As you know, my firm and I worked on the Apostolides matter. And quite interestingly, notwithstanding we had a great success, even after that success, even after all that hard work, we still had people saying, we're not going to solve this through the courts, Costas. We need a political solution. To me, that's basic. I just don't understand it. Maybe we can talk about it later. It just misses the point. And really, I wanted to tonight to try and explain why the law's there, and why we do what we do, but also why we have been successful in very, very difficult circumstances. And Kyriakos has explained Turkey's role, how the West perceived Turkey. I don't need to go through that, that's pretty obvious. But in my view, the law, lawyers, have helped support, to me this is common sense, and I'd like to open up to the floor later on. Lawyers from Cyprus, from the UK, have helped support and affirm the rights of Cypriots, all Cypriots, whether they're Greeks or Turks, the refugees and the Republic of Cyprus. The politicians have proven to be helpless, and the military option, as I said, is not viable. So, why is the law so important? Again, we talk about the rule of law, and we've had lectures about the rule of law. And that's one of the reasons lawyers talk about the rule of law, because it's a basic principle. The rule of law avoids tyranny. It's there for a reason. It supports human rights. Without the rule of law, where would we be? Lawyers try and uphold the rule of law. I know it sounds strange, but that's, in this scenario, that's what we're doing. And we're reminding politicians, reminding the Americans, reminding Turkey that we know our rights and we're going to stick up for them. Now, the rule of law also implies that politicians and officials must have legitimate foundations. I'll read some of these basic principles. I think it's important. That's the other thing we need to do all the time. To remind ourselves of our rights, which unfortunately our politicians do not do. And unfortunately it has been left to the lawyers to have to fight, even our own politicians sometimes, to remind them that actually it's not only morally and ethically wrong, it's legally wrong. And why is it legally wrong? Because it's morally and ethically wrong. That's why we have laws and justice. And unfortunately, we seem to be frightened, particularly on the Greek Cypriot side, of sometimes standing up for those rights. And again, unfortunately, it has to be left to the lawyers to be brave enough to put their head above the parapet and take some risks. But there are risks in these cases.